friend, and welcome to another episode of the Bonsai podcast by Blue Nose Trading. I'm your host, Tori Solis, and today I'm going to be talking with Brendon Norton of Swan Ceramics out of Australia. Today we were able to chat in length about hand building, keeping creativity alive in your daily practice, finding textures in nature, acceptance in process and results, glaze colorants directly from nature, managing and creating social media content, the creation of the Aussie Bonsai Pot Auctions Facebook page, who the best customers are, and more. This was a great conversation that I'm glad we can share with the greater art community, so let's dive right into it. Right, joining me today, I have Brendon Norton, a amazingly talented hand builder and ceramic and bonsai artist out of Australia. So thank you for joining me today, Brendon.
My pleasure, Tori. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I've been following your work for a while now. You're one of my favorite ceramic artists, actually, one of my favorite bonsai potters. So just so you know.
Wow. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. Thank you very much.
So,
I appreciate that.
How did you get started in clay?
Probably very similar to a lot of your guests that you have on here who are focused on bonsai pots. It was through a love of bonsai, primarily, and that desire to have a go at building, some pots for my own trees. So I had quite a collection of trees. Yeah, I thought I'd like to give it a go. I've always dabbled in other forms of art in different medias. And yeah, I thought, why not give it a go? And I had a friend who was a professional potter for many years. And she came over with half a bag of clay, a bit of a crash course in clay preparation, and yeah, just gave me a couple of little tips. And then basically I just went from there and built my first pot. I think the next day I built my second pot. Soon thereafter, half a bag of clay was gone, and I found myself buying some more clay. And then it just continued on, really, to the point where, I completely fell head over heels in love with the craft and the art form. I had so many pots and, not really the right trees for the pots I had built. And like everyone, I think they were pretty shabby to begin with. I do have a couple of my first pots still here.
Nice.
Was building so much because I fell so in love with the craft that I had to start doing something with them. So I built my first pot in 2019, and by the end of 2019 I was selling some of my pots.
Nice. So what art did you do beforehand? What was your prior experience before ceramics?
Yes, I've always just dabbled in various forms of art, drawing, painting. I was doing some work with grid tape where I was putting various lines on pieces of paper to make designs. I still have some of those framed up. Then I was doing designs on cardboard and setting them back into a clock. So I have those floating around in various households here in the southwest of Western Australia. Yeah, and then obviously bonsai, which is an art form in itself, involving art form, which I still love and I still do. It's just kind of like ceramics is my main source of income these days. They're okay, but they're a little neglected compared to what they used to be.
I definitely understand that. I think it's like I love making the bonsai pots and I really love the trees, and I've got a few little trees, but at the end of the day I'm like, but I really love clay, like the most. And I feel like that's
Absolutely.
as it should be, right? Like the potter should love clay the most.
I think so, yeah. And are you working full time as a ceramic artist yourself, Tori?
Yeah, mostly I do a lot of bonsai pots, but I'm really just a cup machine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have one of mine here too.
Ah,
So
nice.
I do make
Nice.
the odd mug, and yeah, I like that. I like to build bonsai pots. I do like to sometimes take what's left over from making that pot, re-wedge it, and build a bowl or a mug or something, just so it doesn't feel like such a production line.
Yeah.
And obviously to improve skills, I'm all about enhancing my skills and trying new things.
So are you mostly hand building? Do you throw it all, or is it all slab work?
Yeah, so it's all it's predominantly slab work. I have had a little bit of experience on the wheel, basically because a friend of mine lent me hers for a period of time when she was away on holidays. So I was self-taught on that. I like that, and it's a skill that I want to develop, and I'm looking at getting a wheel soon. I just love hand building. I have a technique that I use with a banding wheel to make my 90% of my round pots. So most of my round pots are done, are a refined pinch pot basically. So I pinch up a pot, and then I have a technique where I spin the wheel with one hand and then refine the pot. They come up pretty good, and I like the fact that there's still those hand marks on the pot. But yeah, as far as efficiency goes, obviously you can bash out a lot more round pots off a wheel than the way I do it. But I do like the unique feel that it gives each pot with the technique that I've sort of developed myself. I haven't seen anybody else do it. I'm sure there are other people who do it that way, but it works for me. It's like most of the stuff most of my techniques are, because I have no formal training, they're trial and error techniques, and they work for me. And not not all of my techniques are probably technically right, but they work for me. And I guess the proof is in the way they come out of the firing, and the validation by people buying them and things like that.
Well, the work is beautiful, and the hand building, you can come up with some really amazing designs. I've especially loved the different kind of like multi-leveled slab work that you've been doing like this past month as we're recording. Those have been really cool. And like, as somebody who throws and hates slab building, like watching you do it, I'm just like, wow, that's so awesome. Like some of the coolest pots, and I'm like, how do you even come up with these ideas? Some of these are just so, like, they push the edge, but they're so clean and so refined. And like, even the pots you have that are more organic, like you can still feel like a sense of control to them in a good way. So like, how are you coming up with the inspiration for the work that you're making?
Yeah, so I guess in recent times I've been putting to life some designs I've had on the back burner for a long period of time, that I've just been sitting on. So they've been drawings or just stuff that I've had in my mind. And I guess when you're working full time and selling bonsai pots, you have to be mindful of what sells, and I guess in some ways conform to that, because you're trying to make a living out of what you're doing. In recent times, I've thought, I'm gonna sort of put some of these designs out there and see how they're received. So a lot of my recent pots where the form is somewhat pushing the boundaries as far as what would be, I guess mainstream accepted in bonsai pottery. But also keeping in mind that people do like to push the envelope with their aesthetic that they are using for their trees, and all trees are unique. And I do believe that there's a place for all designs in bonsai pottery. And a lot of the stuff I've been building recently are just, they're smaller, so they're a prototype of these ideas that I've got. And then I have that main concept, and then I just add to it. So I guess the inspiration comes from all sorts of things, really. Mainly just, I guess, most of the time I come up with these ideas when, in those twilight hours before bed. So I'll be lying in bed, drifting off to sleep, and I'll be thinking about ideas and designs and forms. And then I kind of lock them away. The next morning I'll sketch it out. And so I have a whole bunch of ideas that I'll be pushing in the next couple of months, just because I want to get them off my chest. And it keeps things exciting and interesting. That's important when you're continually trying to keep those creative juices flowing when you're doing it on a daily basis. And I get bored easily. I like to try and push it a little bit.
Do you feel like your local environment is influencing the style that you're making? It seems like you kind of are connected, and maybe you're not like consciously always aware of where your ideas are coming from, you know, like not in a bad way, but like maybe you're just so connected to everything out bigger than yourself. Maybe do you feel maybe like you're intuitively connected to your ideas, and how does the environment kind of influence that?
Yeah, I guess when you're doing something full time and you get comfortable at it,
Mm-hmm.
then you have a confidence in your ability to build whatever comes to your mind. And I guess clay is such a versatile product, and the only limitation really is your imagination. I guess I do draw. I guess the way my environment comes into my work is the fact that I love to walk
Mm-hmm.
beach. I love to go on bushwalks, and I very rarely go for a walk without coming back with something
Mm-hmm.
that I've collected. So whether it be a piece of bark, an interesting rock from the beach, coral or something like that, and I will use that as as textures on the face of my pots. So that integrates itself in that
Mm-hmm.
way. That is unique to you know
Yeah.
textures are everywhere, and I guess if you want a natural texture, a natural looking texture, you use something from nature.
Mm-hmm.
If you find there's so many different things I see at ceramic shops, cookie cutter type textures and things, that you buy that another person can buy, and I just think to myself, you know, that you can pick up something just off. I could walk out the front of my house here in suburbia
Mm-hmm.
and pick up something off the side of the road and make a unique texture. I just don't feel it's really necessary to use store-bought textures and
Mm-hmm.
have something that's the same as someone else, when all you've got to do really is look and think. And yeah, I guess the environment does come into it. And I live in a beautiful part of the world,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful beaches. I live right next to an inlet, beautiful bushlands. So I guess subconsciously it does come into
Mm-hmm.
it, but I'm influenced. Yeah, a lot of the times on a subconscious level, and obviously I'm influenced by work of others. I think some people can try and deny that, but I think we are all influenced by work that we like and things that we like the look of. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. What about yourself? What your influences, Tori, is as far as where you get your ideas from? Because I do see your work as well, and I do love your work, and I'm the same as you from your perspective as me being a hand builder. When I see someone on the wheel, I think that's something I'd like to get good at as well, to be well-rounded potter.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get a lot of my influences from, I look at a lot of people's work online. So like, you are one of my influences, and pretty much anyone that I've interviewed on here, I'm watching their work, and
Yeah.
I don't ever think like I look at someone's work and go, I'm gonna make that pot too. But more like, I looked at your work for a long time and I thought, hey, he can make speckled bonsai pots. I'm making speckled clay pots from now on forever. We're the speckled clay club. And you see someone else's pots and you see how they're doing their glazing, or how they're doing their feet, or whatever, how they're doing their drainage holes, and you just kind of pick and choose, and you find what resonates or what I like stylistically, and I just like zombie Frankenstein all that together into like my own work. And then another kind of thing I've been chasing in my own work recently is this idea of acceptance. It's more like a not trying to make straight walls, but like trying to make straight walls, but allowing them to get warped. Clay is really wet. And I feel like it gets lost on a lot of people that like the material that we're working with was once really wet and malleable. So if I'm warping a pot in my process in a way that if you look at it, you can go, hey, that was wet once. I kind of like that. So like you'll see my rims are kind of warped, or like I'll push my feet down to where the clay was really wet when I put the feet down, and I didn't let it dry, so it'll like sink like in a drippy
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
way onto the feet. And I like that. So I've been kind of
Yeah.
toying with that, like, because there's enough people who have the precision to make things perfect, and I'm just like, I don't feel perfect, but I don't feel that like my flaws are necessarily like a deal breaking mistake. Like me, I am a pot that was cut off the wheel too fast, and I'm a little warped on the side. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of embrace that in my work, and I'm like, I know what I could do. Like, I could work slower, or I could work more carefully, but I'm like, but also, like, you can't plan for that kind of warp. Like, you can kind of know what caused it, but, like, you can't plan for it. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like pushing the boundaries of, like, what people say, oh, that's a mistake. And I'm like, well, what's a mistake? Like, if it's still functionally sound, like, is it a mistake, or are we just lacking the ability to accept something that's different? I don't know. It's kind of a weird. That's where I'm at right now. I'm making weird kind of warpy pots and being like, yeah, they're warpy and weird. So am I. That's what it is. That's what it is. But
Absolutely, and that's so, and that really is. It's reflective of a personality, and it's I see the beauty in imperfection as well. I have a drive to try and make my work form wise. I try to make it as I would like to see it come out of the firing, and give it every chance to be as clean as possible. But then I do have times where I do feel a little bit more like you, where I have to step back and let things be. I see pots raw form and all that sort of stuff, and I think that's great. And then I see some of the finishing, and I'm very particular about the finishing. So if I've got even a free-formed pot that's a bit warped, I'd still pay particular attention to things like drainage holes, and the parts of the pot that you don't see, I think, have a large bearing on the parts of the pot you do see. So I'm very mindful of that, and pay particular attention to detail. And I think that's deserved of the person who's buying a luxury one-off item as well.
absolutely.
But I totally get what you mean. I mean, that's us. That's Westerners, really. Westerners. We aesthetically always go for the most perfect-looking thing. That's what we're taught. So if you see it, you're at your grocery shop and you see oranges, you're always taught to go for the one that looks the best. It might not be the most nutritious one, but it's the one that looks the best. I think in a lot of Eastern countries, they're more in tune to just accepting things for as they are, because maybe they don't have the choice of as many oranges as we do, for example. So they'll embrace those imperfections, and I love Japanese pottery for that reason. I love the journey around a chinwan, a nice bowl, and the story it tells around the whole piece. And there might be some crawling in the glaze, there might be some warping, there might be some inconsistencies, but very influenced by Japanese pottery as well.
Yeah. I think it's also really important to kind of note, because, like, I know I walk a fine line here, that, like, you do have to know what you're doing with clay. And, like, there are some things that it's not acceptance if it's slapdash and it's not good work. You know what I mean? Like, so,
Yeah.
like, I do agree that you have to take the time with those things. Like, just because my pots are, like, drooping and the rims are warped doesn't mean that I didn't take a sponge and go around all the drain holes so that they're not sharp,
Yes.
or, like,
Yes.
I don't let them wobble on their feet. Like, they look like they're warpy wobbly, but, like, they sit level on their feet.
Flat.
Yeah, like, they aren't gonna, like whoa, 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 while you have a tree in it and throw your tree off the bench. Like, that's not functional. So, like, there is, like, a line, like, you can't just make bad work and say, oh, I'm just accepting that I suck. Like, it has to be good functional work outside of the design. Like, I very much agree. And the feet, like, I trim all of my pots, like, they're all trimmed, and it's I mind the weight and all that stuff, but
Yeah, I think you've explained it better than I did. Those personal characteristics that come into a pot are one thing. The functionality and the finish on a pot is another thing. Yeah, the combination of the two is, I think, necessary.
So, I know that you're using some glazes. Are you a glaze person, a raw body, oxide?
Yeah.
A little bit of all of it?
A little bit of all of it. Obviously depending on if, I have free reign over the finish, i.e. it's a pot for my stock, or if it's something I've built specifically for someone. And then the decision's made from there. I love experimenting with glazes. I make my own glazes.
Nice, me too.
Which basically, I have a matte glaze, I have a gloss glaze, and they are 4 equal parts in ingredients.
Nice.
So they're very simple. So quarter, quarter, quarter,
Yeah, like a 5-5-5.
quarter. Yeah, and then all the colorants I use, oxides, etc., are generally crushed from raw rocks. So I have a
Nice.
uncle who's a geologist, avid rock collector. We have vast array of minerals available in the southwest here of Western Australia where I live, and also north of where I live. So there are copper mines, iron ore mines, obviously. A lot of our rocks that are in nature here are naturally high in iron. Some are easier to crush than others. We have a lot of ochre that is naturally forming in our rocks also. So a lot of the colorants I add to my base glaze recipes are crushed from natural rocks. So I guess what that does is provides, it's not so good if you're wanting to get consistent results for your customers, but what it does do, I guess, is if I've got a nice rock that you can obviously see is high in copper carbonate, because it's green, it's soft, it's easy to crush. It's the other impurities in that rock, I think, that gives, when you store buy copper carbonate, you just get copper carbonate as pure as it possibly can be. When you're crushing a rock, you get things like iron oxide appear, high levels of calcium, magnesium, and it's those impurities in there that I think give some of my glazes just something a little bit different than something that's a store-bought glaze. And I have friends who have some really nice recipes that I work with from time to time. Most of my work, 90% of my work is once fired.
Oh, cool.
So I don't bisque fire. There's been a fair bit of trial and error in as far as glazes that accept that form of firing. But generally speaking, to recipes, I just add extra kaolin, some more clay in there to make them a little bit more stable and pull onto the body of the pot a bit better. Yeah, so I love glazing, but also like working. I use different grades of rutile that are available to me here. We have rutile ilmenite mines nearby.
Super jealous.
Which is good. So they provide some interesting finishes on pots in combination with other oxides. I love experimenting with glazes. It can be a frustrating thing. It's a whole nother gamma of information that's required, and I think it's people who don't have an understanding or an interest in pottery. They might buy a piece of pottery. They don't know the trials and tribulations that have gone into getting a particular glaze. It can be quite frustrating. I test a bit, but I tend to just throw caution to the wind a lot of the time and just put glazes on a smaller pot and see how it goes. I think test tiles are great as a general overview, but you never really know until you've put it on a piece of work how it's going to sit. Yeah, I like to throw caution to the wind, and I like that the unknown when you're opening the kiln as well. I think that's what keeps things exciting. I see videos on social media. People doing kiln openings, and I see that a large amount of functional utilitarian wear, and it's all beautifully made, and it's all got the same glaze. And then the next video, the same glaze again. And I think to myself, I could not work like that. I would get so bored. I like that thrill of, am I going to succeed here, or is this going to be a failure? And both things keep me inspired. So if I have a really good result, I feel good and I feel inspired to push forward, take it to that next step. If I fail, I feel equally inspired to right my wrong and find out how I can make this better. So I find a nice balance between getting things right, getting things wrong, but both of those things just make me strive to get better at what I'm doing and understand more.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about yourself, Tori? What glazes are you using? Commercial glazes primarily,
I make mine.
Yeah, you do. Yeah,
Yeah, I went
got
on
some you've
Glazy
got some
and
beautiful
ah,
glazes.
thanks. They're all kind
I've
of
noticed.
So I went on Glazy and I found a few, and I've got the John Britt book, the Cone 6 John Britt book here, and
Mm-hmm.
so I found some base recipes that I really liked, and then I took a ceramic materials workshop course in basic glaze chemistry. And basically, now that I have the Excel spreadsheet for the Unity molecular formula, I took all my base glazes and reformulated them to match my clay bodies specifically. And now
Perfect.
I just kind of I play with the colorants sometimes, and I'm playing with different application methods. I just bought a spray gun and a air compressor, so I'm gonna play with that
Yep.
here soon. But um, as far as it goes, I do have buckets of glaze that I dip, and I like so I have a production line of cups that I make. And for that production line, what I needed was a job. Like I needed to set aside like, okay, I'm going to be able to make these, wholesale these, sell these at this price. Like I've got the production and the pricing down to a like, the to the minute. I know and they're always going to look the same. So I created that line and I'm like, okay, that's the money, right? And so then
Yep.
I set up a hard line in my practice and I said, my bonsai pots, I don't give a single crap who likes them, and I don't care if they sell. They're gonna be what
Yeah.
I want them to be. So
Hmm.
like they are my glaze tests and they are my experiments, and I'm exploring through my bonsai pots, and like so I'm not making stuff that's like other people's work, and I'm not making production bonsai pots. And then when people want to wholesale with me for bonsai pots, I'm like, okay, well, here's what I can do, and it's going to be artist choice because I'm not going to let you tell me what colors you want, really. And I don't do
Yeah.
commissions on bonsai pots, so it's just kind of like I
It's
give myself full creative freedom there, and then I
That's
can
perfect.
explore the glaze however I want to. And if I find something super stable or super amazing, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll add this to my cup line, and whatever,
Yeah.
make a bucket.
That's a perfect balance. Yeah, and I guess that's what you have to do to keep yourself progressing.
Mm-hmm.
You have your core that you know will sell,
Yeah.
and then you have your, like you said, you have your items where I don't really care if it sells or not.
Right.
For me, it's kind of the other way around. Kind of, my bonsai pots are my core,
Mm-hmm.
and my other bits and pieces that I make, they're my experimental pieces. And if if they sell, they sell. If they become birthday, Christmas gifts, so be it. If I just want to give one to a friend, I can do that because I don't really care. But yeah, it's nice to have something where you can just you don't have that limitation and you don't have that expectation and
Mm-hmm.
you're not relying on it selling.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's kind of that full freedom. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's interesting that we're the opposite. That you're
Yeah,
like I don't care about these
yeah.
cups.
Yeah. I literally make mugs and bowls and things like that, just like I said, so that the bonsai pots don't feel like quite so much like a production line.
Mm. So are you just cups and bowls and stuff? Do you sell like where do you sell your work at? All of it, not
So
just.
I have a set. I kept my Bad Swan ceramics, and I've got Brendon Norton ceramics as
Mm-hmm.
well on Instagram. I kept those two entities separate because I guess a lot of bonsai people aren't necessarily interested in general ceramics.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept the two entities separate. I do the odd market. I have a market that's in a beautiful park just over
Mm-hmm.
here where I live. So sometimes I open up my garage door and
Nice.
jump on the back of that and get some passing foot traffic. And yeah, I don't really push that too
Mm-hmm.
much. I have my hands full with what I'm doing and what I'm selling at the moment. If I can make a little bit of money out of that, then it's great. If they end up as gifts, I'm also happy with that. Or if they end up just for personal use, I'm happy with that. I do have a strong interest in what I guess would be considered more general ceramics
Mm-hmm.
and utilitarian pieces. And I feel like potentially in the future, that may be the way that I start to lean more towards, and larger forms and things like that, and sculptural forms. And I feel like bonsai pottery is a really good grounding for particularly for in hand building,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and particularly if you're willing to take a chance and try other things like, sculptural pieces and carving and all those sorts of things. I really like to try and get my head around all different aspects, and then I think probably later in life I'll focus on really in on something, but it may not be in the bonsai realm. I'm not too sure yet, but we'll see.
It's interesting that you separated your social media account. It seems to have done really well for you, because mine's all one, and I have two, but they're not totally separated. I created the Blue Nose trading page, and that's me. That's like where I post all me and my trash and baggage. It's all there, all of it. Yeah. And it's kind of like, I was like, okay, this is where I'm gonna be as a whole person. So like, if y'all want to hear like my opinions, like my light opinions, I'm not that bad. But like, some light opinions, some web comics, I share my dogs, all the stuff I make, it's all there on Blue Nose Trading. And then I made the Tori Solis ceramics page as just like a backup, because I've seen so many people and other makers be like, I lost my whole Instagram. And I was like, I should probably have a backup page. So I just made a backup page, and it's just there, and I just post the pictures, just the no reels or anything. But overall, as far as it goes online, I'm really kind of burned out on trying because of how bad the reach seems in general for Instagram. But you seem to, I really love the content you're creating. So how do you go about making your content plan for all those videos? Like, your process videos are so awesome.
Thank you very much. Well, that's just a sort of a new thing late last year, and I guess the popularity of those videos has equaled more following. It's not necessarily, from a sales point of view, it doesn't really mean anything. I guess it's validation from other ceramic artists, and they like what they see, and I guess some more general public, taking a process, I guess, that it's not a spectator sport, it's relatively boring to watch. And trying to, I guess the idea was to try and make it as exciting as possible by adding some cool cheesy tunes, highlighting what would be the most exciting part of the building process, and just getting creative that way. So I guess that idea just sort of came from when I'm firing my kiln, which is, fairly enclosed in my studio. I have extraction fans and things like that, but I tend to try and work outside of my space while it's firing, perfumes, etc. I just take everything out into my back patio. And I guess the idea just one day just started filming the process and take a lot of footage, and then I guess learning a new skill of editing and bringing it all together, which I've actually really actually enjoy doing now.
You're really good at it. So
thank you.
I've got a YouTube channel, and I don't feel like my cropping and cutting is nearly as like well thought out. So.
Yeah, I think it's just just let that camera keep rolling, and then dedicating a bit of time to finding the bits that work and piecing them together. It's just another thing that you've got to do when you're trying to maintain traction, when you're working within a niche market and you're trying to make a living out of it. I guess you've got to be open to being a potter, a store person, a salesperson, social media person, a film editor.
Absolutely.
And all of those skills are handy, whether you can sustain what you're doing or not, those skills transcend. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I really enjoy making those little videos, and I think a lot of them have gained some really nice attention, a lot more attention than I had ever expected. That's to be awesome. Perfectly honest.
No, you deserve it. They're really great videos, and they showcase really, really well done work. So there's no reason that you shouldn't fully embrace all of the attention that you are getting and deserving from those.
It's humbling. Thank you.
So I heard that you founded the Aussie Bonsai Pot Auctions page. How did that come about?
It came about, basically via selfish means, I guess. Not selfish means, but another avenue to sell my work. I've had websites. I've had a website, a sales website. Look, I guess with a name like Aussie Bonsai Pot Auctions, you're getting right to the core audience of someone who wants to buy a bonsai pot in Australia. And I have gained overseas customers from that
Yeah.
particular page as well. Yeah, I guess the mindset was to try and pinpoint that audience that really wanted to buy the product and give them somewhere to go to browse work. And obviously it's open to everyone, and it's free to use. So there's other bonsai ceramicists in Australia who use it, who make their own work, and then there's people who import some Chinese pots and Japanese pots. And it was just about, we're a bit pot starved here in Australia as far as choice goes. You guys in America probably have a lot more options. In Australia, to get something within Australia, it's harder. So, there's a lot of crappy slip cast pots that you can buy, like, really average quality. And, people are, with bonsai being a progressive thing in most Western countries, pot selection is a very important thing, particularly if you're looking at developing trees for exhibition and display purposes. Pot stand can make or break that. You have the best tree in the worst pot, and all of those aspects have to be.
It's all the composition.
Complementary. Yeah, absolutely. Because if one of them's letting it down, 100%. Sorry. One of them's letting the other down, then they're only as good as their weakest link in a exhibition display scenario. So I guess, it's given people who are serious about bonsai somewhere to go and, and have a look. And it's been very, very good for me. Support that I received from there is amazing. There's some administration challenges with any of those sorts of pages that you have, but in general, it runs itself. And it basically means I don't have a sales website anymore. I'll advertise my work on a social media level first, and then probably sell a few that way, and then what's remaining will go onto that page basically. Very, very lucky there.
Yeah, I'm not sure which page came first, but I sell on the 99cent and the bonsai auction page groups, which are more, I think they're more US centered. But I love selling on those pages. So like my strategy, like my pricing strategy, since I told you I don't like to wholesale my bonsai pots because then people have expectations. So like what I like to do is I usually will start my auction at my wholesale price. And then I'm just like, okay, it's wholesale now, because like on those pages everybody's super comfortable with paying shipping, so I don't have to be like free shipping like I have to do on Etsy and everything or on my website. So like I'm just like, okay, like I'm gonna list it at my wholesale price, that way like there's really no fees to sell on those Facebook pages, so it's not a big deal to wholesale to get money real quick. I can get money, like I can get pots out that I like into the community for a somewhat reasonable price. And then if the community decides, girl, that pot is the bee's knees, they can pay me more than I thought I was ever going to get for it sometimes. So it's just perfect, really great. Yeah. And
it's a perfect scenario. And also the fact that those pages that you mentioned have, large followings. So you're getting your work in front of eyes that may never have seen your work previously, or may never have seen your work at all. So that's really good. And you only need, if you're making bonsai pots as a secondary to your main ceramics, you only need a couple of handfuls of really good customers, and who appreciate and like the work.
I'm the best customers.
That'll just keep you, that keep you ticking along. I have some amazing customers like that.
Some of y'all out there got more of my pots than I do.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. I'm exactly the same. I have a few guys who, I have some special customers, and I won't mention any names.
I understand.
Or anything like that. But I'm blessed to have some people, some huge supporters of my work, and I hope that in the future, if I do start to go in other areas of ceramics, it'll be in ceramics, I'm sure.
Oh,
because I love it. That the price of the work goes up, and they've got a handy investment. That would be nice.
Yeah, I like to send there's always a few, the handfuls, and I notice them. I see their name again and again and again, or they message me again on the Facebook page because they've won their 18th pot, and I like to stick things in there with them. Like so if I have visual seconds, sometimes I have visual seconds off the production of like my mugs and stuff. I'm like, you get a mug this week.
I do the same thing. Yeah, if I have like standout support
Yes.
for a particular period of time, I like to give gifts of accent pots
Mm-hmm.
or another smaller pot just as a thank you. I mean, it's really humbling, and you know that people are willing to spend their hard-earned money on our work. It's
Mm-hmm.
and without that and without those people, you can't do what you love doing. And you can't sustain it. So, big shout out to the people who support,
Amen.
handcrafted anything or any
Exactly.
really any handcrafted and hand created work is being supported is
It just takes the money and puts it back to the community. Like if you buy it off of a big chain store or corporation or whatever, like you're just giving them, let's say $50 for a cup or something. Let's those Stanley cups or whatever that are super popular right now. And like you're just giving money to the machine, and the machine is paying Lord knows who pennies on the dollar to make that stupid thing. And like where you could pay me and then me plus the small business of my clay store and all the other small businesses that I'm supporting and like the people who make my bread and like all those people, we're all happy dancing because I get to keep existing instead of like
exactly.
throwing it into the dividends machine or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, Tori. I mean, it's when you're a full-time potter, you know, everything's a tax deduction.
Mm.
Everything, everything goes towards what you do. The clothes that you're wearing, the kilometers that you're driving, everything is
I wish they let us
facilitated.
deduct our health care. I have to
Maybe one
exist or
day.
the pots don't happen. So it
Yeah, well,
should
you want
be
to,
deductible.
yeah, you want to be an athlete if you want that to
Oh
happen
gosh.
in some form
I
of
feel like
sport.
I am an athlete. I remember very distinctively, it's something that resonates in my head all the time. My little brother, when I told him I was interested in being a potter before I'd ever got any clay, he said, "Oh, you have to be really strong if you're just gonna throw that clay around on the wheel." And I was like, whatever. And like now, every time I throw 5 pounds down on the wheel to throw a pot, I'm like, ah, like thinking about how strong I have to be. I'm like, I am strong, like opening it up. Oh,
Oh, that's funny.
so do you?
Yeah, you do have to. You need that good core strength and upper body strength. It's
I've definitely gotten
to do it
stronger.
all the time. I think most of us have very strong hands,
Yeah,
strong. Yeah. It's just comes with working with them all day. Maybe not so much legs though.
yeah, no.
I stand in the same spot for hours on end, and then I have to chuck a couple of squats in there to
Just to
remind myself it
get
might
the
might be
blood
leg days.
flowing. So, what is your favorite part of the ceramic process all around?
I think the building process and the part, when I'm not building a commissioned pot, the part that comes before that building process,
Hmm.
as far as what I'm going to build, and try and be a little bit conscious as to what leads me to build a certain thing on any
Hmm.
particular day. So it's quite interesting because a lot of people, I guess, when they get into that creative process, don't absorb what's leading me towards wanting to build this today
Hmm.
or build this. And sometimes it's the mood you're in, and sometimes, for me, I'm feeling like super precise, and I want to build something with a dragon motif
Hmm.
or something like that. I'm feeling very steady, very
Hmm.
calm. Then other days, I guess, with fluctuating emotions and everything that we all experience as human beings,
Hmm.
sometimes I'm feeling a little bit skittish, and that will determine what I build. It might be something freeform, or there might be something a little bit abstract. So yeah, I like that part of the process before I start building as well, where I'm like, what is leading me towards making these decisions as to what I'm going to build? I think that's quite interesting as part of the creative process. Then I love building. When I have days where I'm just focused on building, and I have some music on, and I have that, I'm in the zone, and I'm processing other things that are happening in my life while I'm working. That mental freedom is so healthy. I think that comes from creativity and being able to do it, being blessed to be able to do it on a daily basis. I think it makes you really good at processing other things that are happening in your life. I love opening the kiln. The kiln's firing at the moment, actually, so it'll cool down tomorrow. So Friday in Australia, I will open that. I love that part of the process, obviously. But there's no part of the process that I despise. I know a lot of people, don't really like glazing or other parts of the process. I feel grateful to be able to do this as a job. I feel grateful that I'm supported enough to be able to do this as a job. I think about previous employment that I've had, and if I got to spend a day glazing pots or 2 days glazing pots, it's nothing. It really, it's certainly nothing that I'm going to sit here and complain about. So I love parts of the process more, but I'm grateful to be able to do any part of the process.
Absolutely. I feel absolutely pretty much entirely the same way. I love glazing and throwing and trimming. It's all a privilege that I'm able to do any of it. So, and no one's going to throw a latte at me. It's just not going to happen. So
that's a bonus,
it's all
Tori.
good stuff here. Awesome.
Yeah, and I guess, if each part of the process facilitates the next part until we get our final product. So, I think you just embrace each part of it. And, then obviously once the product comes out, then there are the various steps that are needed to take to be able to make more of that product, which is the selling part and the packaging part, which can be laborious, but
I love packing pots.
It facilitates the next part of the process, doesn't it? I don't so much love packing pots, but once again, it's just part of the process, and to get you back to the point where you're building again, the cycle continues.
Yeah, it's good to think of it as a cycle too. I have one more little question. Are you firing gas or electric?
I'm firing electric. I have the largest capacity-wise single-phase kiln that I could find on the market. I'm a little bit trapped as to where I work, because obviously I work from home. As far as space goes and logistics around and legalities around firing with gas, I would love to have both options, and I feel in the near future I will. As I'm looking at potentially moving possibly further south, more space, opening up firing options, definitely electric gas options. I would like to have both available to me, and then hopefully in the future a small fast-fired wood fired kiln. That's the plan for the future. I'd like to have all three options available and build specifically for those firing techniques.
Those are some pretty.
What about yourself? You're just firing electric as well, Tori?
Yeah, I've got a SCUT with the touchscreen, so I have a lot of control over my electric, but it's all electric oxidation. And I have a tiny little kiln. It's like an 822, I think.
Oh yeah.
So I can't make huge pots.
Yeah, I have a small kiln which I had first as well, which is 100% manual as well.
I did that for a while.
So no controller, which is, I think it's good. I think that's a good place.
I agree.
To start too with firing electric.
Then you know how cones work.
Yeah, absolutely. You have an understanding of temperature rise, and it's very obviously has to be hands-on. Obviously, all of my kiln at the moment is automated, but it was nice to have that period of time where you have to be directly involved with the kiln, as you would be with gas firing and wood firing, obviously. yeah, it's important to have an understanding of why things are happening, and how they happen in the firing process with all the different techniques of firing.
Yeah.
I think that's
Absolutely.
it's nice to have your head around those things.
I'm all about that kind of stuff. That's why, like, I'm in the glaze chemistry. Like,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I know how to read a unity molecular formula, so I'm like
yeah. I
in
don't.
the sauce of the technical stuff.
I don't even know what that means. No, but yeah, that's great, and I think that's awesome that you've committed yourself to that. I have a general understanding of glaze chemistry, very compared to
I think we're
you know
probably on the same level. I just have some big words.
yeah, I probably only know the tip of the iceberg, but for me, what I'm doing at the moment, it's enough, and a lot of it's just been documented myself by not really knowing what I'm doing. Like I said before, trial and error, and now I feel reasonably comfortable even trying new glazes for the first time because I've got those, like I mentioned before, two strong base recipes which I know work well for my once firing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just, I guess, colorants, which is obviously add to how fluid the glaze is and the flux of the glaze, but got that kind of under control too, even with my crushing of raw ingredients.
Okay, I think that's a super awesome part of the
well,
process.
it's super time consuming. It's probably a little silly, but I think if you want unique results in anything, you do something that's unique.
Maybe maybe you could look into a ball mill or something that could crush those for you. Maybe.
So I just use a
mortar and pestle. Hey.
And yeah, it's quite time consuming. Everything, the way I do everything is quite time inefficient, I guess.
Understand.
But I guess I've taught myself to do most things just out of doing it all the time.
Yeah.
I've taught myself to do most things with both hands.
Mm-hmm.
So just as a bit of a personal challenge, that kind of helps with my efficiencies.
Nice.
But everything else I do is like takes time.
Yeah.
But I think that's important if you want a unique finish and a unique product.
Yeah, I agree. So what's your process for commissions? I know that you take them. Let me just say again that I don't. So tell us all about how it goes for you.
Oh, I know commission work is part and parcel of doing what I do because people want something specific for their pride and joy, their tree, and they have a vision which sometimes is very different to my vision when they send me photos of their trees. So it typically starts with someone just reaching out, sending me photos of their tree, asking for my opinion. You generally pretty set in their mind what they see for the tree, which is fine. And then really just comes down to dimensions, what I can physically fit in my kiln, which puts me out of some really bigger pots, which is fine because I don't particularly like building really big pieces. For kiln economy, it really, a lot of people don't understand is that financially it doesn't make as much sense as it does as building 4 smaller pots.
Say it again for the people in the back.
I know, Tori. So and the risks are greater with larger pieces as well. So my larger pots are the only pots that I bisque fire. I do bisque fire all my larger work. All my smaller stuff just goes in there. So that's another part of the thing that when I'm quoting these things that people don't quite get the concept of. I wouldn't want a massive kiln because then people would want me to build bigger and bigger pots. So it's like I love building Shohin size pots. I love the extra creative freedom you have with our Shohin display as well with the pottery. I like building pots up to sort of this big. When they start getting those big pots, I'm happy to leave to the Japanese and the Chinese. They do them so well, and they get them out of the process. Big rectangle pots with straight lines and these sorts of things that that as Western potters building bonsai pots, our techniques and our clay bodies and our firing techniques and things like that, dictate those things a lot of the time, particularly when you're trying to get long, straight walls. I've maybe achieved it once or twice. Most of the time I get warpage, like 90% of other people, and it's so frustrating. It might be just one wall, but it's way off. I think smaller pots is where I'm at, definitely personally, but I will build larger pots at request, not usually by choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the process. It's just a bit of back and forth. It'd be nice to be able to just build what I want to build. That's where I feel happiest and most comfortable. As soon as there's an expectation, that word again, sorry, it puts an added level of pressure on. And there's so many things that can happen in the process, and you can be back at square one before you know it. I'm much more comfortable just building what I want to build and having that freedom, but also am thankful that people like my work enough to want to put their pride and joy into one of my pots.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, we are coming up on our time here, or it's going to be a crazy long podcast.
Yeah, that's okay.
Did you have any questions for me or anything before we wrap up here?
No, more of a statement. Just wanted to encourage you to continue doing what you're doing. I'm loving some of the work. I love break up from glaze to raw clay body. The clay body that you're using looks really, really nice.
The speckledy one?
Yeah, speckledy one. Yeah, I love that.
Me too.
And I like how I like those two aspects that are coming into your work. Your glazes are very pretty.
Thanks.
And just encouraging you to continue on and thank you for having me.
Yeah, totally. I've been looking forward.
This specific podcast for bonsai pottery. I think it's new and I think it's really good, and I think you're going to go from strength to strength with it. So I wish you all the luck.
Fun. It's just fun for me. I don't know where we're going. I'm just having a good time talking to people all over the world. I don't have any expectations, so that makes things great. I don't take commissions and I don't have expectations, and life is good over here.
That's awesome.
Where can everybody find you online? We'll finish up with that.
Yeah, sure. So I have Bad Swan Ceramics for my bonsai pottery. I have Brendon Norton Ceramics for my general ceramics, both on Instagram. And sorry, Bad Swan Ceramics is just on Facebook, but Instagram is Brendon Norton Ceramics, Bad Swan Ceramics. You can find me there. You can message me there 24/7. And when I choose to get back to you, I will.
Absolutely fair. We love those boundaries.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Brendon.
Awesome. Thanks, Tori.
This podcast is brought to you by Blue Nose Trading, which is me and all of my patrons. You can get early access to unreleased podcast episodes and YouTube videos by becoming a patron of my work at patreon.com/bluenosetrading. You can find all of my current available ceramic work on my website, bluenosetrading.com. For social media links and information about today's featured artist, be sure to check out the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Remember that you have great ideas that are worth exploring, drink lots of water, and I will see y'all next time around.